finally. But last year, Mike, you spoke to Nigel Benn about that very subject, because he really struggled, didn't he, when he gave up?
Yeah, and in many senses, very like Hatton, brought great excitement to spectators at ringside, was involved in so many great fights. It's 20 years this year since he boxed Chris Eubank at what was the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham for the first time. It was just an amazing night, and, you know, so difficult to leave those nights behind. But he's, again, Nigel Benn, an example of this boxing paradox. These men who find the ultimate control in the most harsh arena in sport, and yet outside of the ring they seem to lose all control.
I wanted fame, money, women, you name it, I wanted it all. And you know what? Did I have peace? No, I just had more trouble, more heartache, more darkness, just in total disarray my life was. And now Jesus come into my life and I have absolute peace in my life.
When you talk about darkness, is that just on reflection, or could you, looking back, really sense at the time that deep down you weren't happy?
Yeah, because I was either trying to fill it, with something else. I was either filling it with women going out clubbing, partying, and that's what was really happening. I was just trying to feel something was missing in my life. I thought, wow. I had to buy friends, you know, I made a lot of money, millions in it, and I just had people that just wanted to be around me to sponge off of me, really, to tell you the truth. But you know what, I thought they were my friends. I never had no friends at all. I would go out and buy champagne and everything. I never drank champagne. So everyone was just around me just to see what they can get out of me. You know, so that's what my life was like for all through my career. All through my career, that's it. I never had no friends. I was just a pawn, really. Just made people money, that was it, really. If it wasn't for my wife, through Jesus, I would have lost every single thing. I'd either, like I said, I'd either be 6 foot under or in a mental hospital. I believe that, because that's where my life was going, to total destruction.
For those who haven't found the peace that you have, do you think there's more that boxing as a sport, whether it's promoters, managers, the board of control, television companies, could do more for those that retire?
They don't worry about that. It's all about making pound notes. They don't care if my arm broken. Look, there's another Nigel Benn on the way. I need him, he's finished. Get somebody else. But
should they care?
Nah. They ain't.
Because it was your choice to do what you're doing.
Amen. It's my choice. I ain't got to worry about that. Everything that I done was what I want. If I want to have that life, I could have chose that life.
Because there are still many youngsters out there with gloves on who look at what you did, and you are a hero. I mean, there's the Olympic gold medalist James DeGale talks about watching your fights against Eubank and saying that was what drew him into a gym.
Yeah, and you know what it is, and I've watched him, he's a good-looking lad as well, but you know what it is, and I even speak to David Hay as well, be careful. They're good-looking lads, and you know what it is, women say, and that's where it all starts. You start winning, you attract, you know, and that's where you got to be strong. You got to be strong, and I wasn't. I was very weak.
So you're saying that these people have got to be aware of, I remember a famous phrase from Floyd Patterson when he became champion. He said he suddenly had a friend for every dollar in his pocket.
Oh, amen. I had that, and you know what it is, and it's lucky that I had a great wife to stop me. I would have been skint now. It's how, you know what it is, like I said to David, hey, make sure, but I said, like, you be careful out there, because you know what it is, it's making sure that you have a good foundation with your family, you have a good network of people around you, because you know what, you can easily get drawn away from them like I did. But you know, I said, yeah, go for it. Why should I tell you what was good for me is not good for you? Sport that I love.
Still love?
Still love.
Well, that was Nigel Benn. Come back to you in a second. Steve, what were you going to say about Nigel Benn?
I was going to pick up what Nigel Benn was saying there. You know, I thought these people were my friends. They weren't, and you've got to surround yourself with good people. Well, nobody in the history of British boxing has surrounded himself with so many people who love him and whose best interests are you know, they're looking out for than Ricky Hatton. Yeah. Is that fair? Paul Speaky, you know, his agent. I mean, he idolises Ricky. He's never more than 5 foot from his side. When he was with Billy Graham was never more than 5 foot from his side. He's got Ray Hatton, his dad, there, permanent permanently with him. He's got his mother Carol permanently with him. He's got his girlfriend Jennifer Dooley permanently with him. There's a lovely woman who really cares and adores him and dotes on him. He's got his brother constantly with him. Matthew, there's not a fighter in history, maybe other than Joe Calzaghe, who's surrounded by so many people who are not sponging off him, not poncing off him, not nicking his money and looking after him. That's Ricky Hatton. Is that a fair comment?
Absolutely, and that's the surprise about this story, and also about Joe Calzaghe. They've got that foundation. That was the word used by Nigel Benn. They've got this foundation, and that's why, in a sense, that this story might be even more worrying than any other.
There's a great quote, actually, which I was reading earlier on Ben Durr's column on the 5 Live website, on the BBC website, and it was a quote from Ken Buchanan. He said, when I won my first championship, I came out of the ring and I said, Dad, that's my first title, I'm going to be world champion. He said, you stick in, son, just leave the women alone, leave the drinking alone, and leave the smoking alone. I said, Dad, I'm only 8. but
he never listened. And he never listened.
And then we all know why. But Richie, I mean, who were the people around you when you were fighting? I mean, who are the people who you listened to?
Well, I had a very, obviously, and I've still got my wife, very good wife with me, and my dad as well, who was my coach for many years. Was a great coach and a great father to me. But my wife, I think, was very strong as well. She never used to come and watch me box. She wasn't a boxing fan. She's not a boxing fan at all. So she used to stay at home. And I always remember when I won the title against Sugar Boy Malinga. And it was an absolute crazy night in Telford Ice Rink. It was about 4,000 people rammed into this ice rink. They took the roof off, literally, the roars. It was fantastic. I beat Malinga, and I always remember walking from the ring. And one of the first people that I met along the way was Robert McCracken, who's obviously a friend of mine, and he's the Great Britain coach now for the Olympic team. And he literally shook my hand, and he looked straight into my eyes, and he went, "You've done it, man." And it was like 2 or 3 seconds. That's what he said to me. "You've done it, man," he says. And I knew exactly what he was talking about, because all your life as a boxer, the quest to be world champion, that's what's burning inside you. That's the passion. And I'll never forget going home, because a lot of boxers go out on the town and that afterwards and they celebrate, but I was never like that. I always wanted to get home to my family. All I wanted to do when I got home was have a nice cup of tea, and I'd go walking my dogs at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was still buzzing from the fights. But I always remember getting home. I got home and my wife said to me, "Do you want a cup of tea?" I says, "Yeah." She said, "Well done." She gave me a hug, and I sat down and I sat at the table. I'll never forget, I picked up this cup of tea, I looked straight across at it, and I says, "What am I going to win now?" And I tell you what, it was meant to be the greatest moment of my life, the greatest night of my life, but something just went out inside me that night, because it was the holy grail of boxing, to win that WBC championship, and I'd won it, and there was nothing left to win. And she turned around to me and she says, "Well, you've got to do it for the kids now and our future." And I says, "Yeah, you're right, love, yeah, that's what I've got to do now." But I was never ever the same again. And it wasn't about the money for me, it was the passion for winning that championship of the world. And once I'd won it, I never trained as hard again. Don't know what it was, but I was never the same fighter. And in my first defence, I think it showed there against Glenn Catley. I boxed absolutely terrible, took my training lightly, took Catley lightly, and I came within a whisker of losing my title. And I was never the same again, I must admit. And I always remember when I boxed Joe Calzaghe and I got beat, and I got back in the changing room, and my old man, he sat down with me and he looked straight into my eyes again. He says, "Richie, it's over, son, you're finished." And I says, "Yeah, you're right, Dad." And that was it.
But you were able to recognise that. I mean, it's that ability, isn't it, to say, "Yep, you're right, it's over." Yeah,
it was. I was about 31, 32 at the time, and I was picking up injuries, and it's amazing, your body is amazing. You're a 20-year-old kid, and you shake off injuries within days, no problem at all. You get to late 20s, it gets a little bit harder, and as soon as you hit 30, then believe you me, the injuries, they last longer, and I was getting back pain all the time, and I knew that I couldn't train at the intensity that I wanted to. And with all due respect to European titles, British titles, Commonwealth titles, I didn't want to step back. I considered those step backs because I was a world champion, and I only wanted to compete at world championship level, and I knew that I couldn't do that anymore, and I decided to walk away. But that first year was the hardest. I never walked into a gym for the first year, and it was very, very difficult, because I knew that if I did go back, then I would want to put the gloves on again and get back in there. And since I've become a trainer, I made a pledge that I would never spar any of my boxers, because my lads who I train now, they say, "Come on, Rich, come on, do us a few rounds. And I've never sparred one of them yet, because I know, even to this day, I'm 42 years of age, but I know if I put the gloves on and there's a little bit of competition there, then I'll want to do it again.
So have you never really put the gloves on in anger since then?
Never.
The only time I put the gloves on in a spar and Bunce is there and he's laughing was against Jim Bentley, and he was the referee, and it was Jim Bentley's wife called me up and says, Rich, will you do us a favour? We want to put Jim. You explain about it, Steve-O. You know more about it.
Jim Bentley used to be a senior TV producer here. Then he went off with us to Setanta, and Jim was having his 40th birthday, and his wife organised a sort of secret sparring session for him. And the reason why we're telling the story, there is the point to it. Jim had been in training. Richie hadn't. Richie didn't know what was going on. And I tell you what, just for a few moments, Richie forgot himself, and I was the referee. Just for a few moments, he's absolutely right, with big gloves on, and all the kids there, and the granddads, everyone laughing, and some cream cakes and loads of beer and wine. And I am telling you, there was one moment when I was in the ring, Mike, and you know what, I'm not joking here. There was one moment, Ellie, when Richie, I could just see for one half a second, Jim Bentley has no idea how close he came to being knocked spark out in the Dow. Am I right telling the truth, Rich?
What
was
just
1 second.
It's just an instinct that you have, and he was in front of me, and I think he threw a shot, and I rolled underneath, and I sort of clipped him, and he looked at me because he staggered a little bit, and I thought, oh, sorry about that, Jim. It's his birthday. What a lovely birthday present it was.
Then he hit me non-stop.
Yeah. Then I think I got Buncey with a couple to the stomach. So I got beat on points, by the way. Yeah.
Lots more to come from Richie, from Steve, and from Mike as well, of course.